Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Denver, Colorado. And today I have a fun card for you that is evolving. I've been messing around with this thing all day long and I think I finally got what it is I want to do. And so, and it's using the Forever Fern or the Greenery, Forever Greenery paper, and it's using birds and branches, and that's the first time I've had a play with that one. And it's using some of our laser cut gold elements, and let's just get started. Okay, here is my card in its current evolution, and it's probably changing a tiny bit from this as well. And this one is a top folding card, and it's got some of the elements of the birds and branches and one of the little birds there. And then I used the Forever Greenery paper. I love this particular paper anyway, but it has elements of the Misty Moonlight, which is the new in color that we have, kind of a soft medium blue. It's really pretty. I just love it. And so there's a lot of parts and pieces to this, and it is a little fiddly. I will warn you about that. And the inside is brings some of the paper in and some of the elements that I used. So what it takes to make this, and we're going to make it a little bit more interesting on this one by cutting off this edge here so that it opens and you can see behind it. So I have a piece of thick Whisper White here that is 4.5 by 11 scored and folded at 5.5. Give that a little extra burnish there. Then I have 3 pieces of paper. I have a piece of this Forever Greenery paper, and this paper is 4.25 by 5. Then I have 2 more pieces of paper. This is the Misty Moonlight that is 4.5 by, it almost doesn't matter. This one is, you can make it 4.25 by 2 or 3. This happens to be a scrap that I had that size, and this one is 4.25, and this is garden green. That seemed to go the best with the colors in here, and again, it could be quite a bit shorter than this one. Okay, so we're going to need our trimmer and a pencil and a ruler, and I'll show you what I did to get this cut the way I did. The very first thing we're going to do is, this is 4.25 wide, so dead center is 2 1/8. So I am putting a mark, I'm going to put a pretty good size mark at 2 1/8. And then I measured up 1 inch on either side. So I'm measuring up 1 inch and making a pretty healthy mark. And I am going to do that same thing on this paper. So 2 1/8. And these marks can be pretty heavy on this one because this paper is of course the same on both sides, so we can put our pencil marks on the back. So at 1 inch, and this is fairly important to get these measurements pretty much exactly right, because we're going to try and match that shape. So again, 1 inch on this side. There we go. So those 2 are marked. And then this one, I think I'm going to mark on the back side. And I'm going to do that same thing, measure 2 1/8 and put a pretty healthy mark there, and up 1 inch, and again good mark, and then up 1 inch and put a mark. All right, now we need our trimmer, and what we're going to do, or you could eyeball it and just cut it, but for me, I like to be a little bit more precise than that. So there's my mark at 1 inch, and then down from that mark there would be my center point, or 2 1/8, and I'm going to slice that off, and then I'm going to do the same thing from this side down to that point and give that a slice as well. So there we have our first cut. Now we're going to do exactly the same with these pieces. Now then, we're going to take our card front, and we're going to sort of dry fit this so we know how it'll work. And the more I look at this, the more I think that these next two pieces should have the same. I made the blue one a little narrower and then the green one a little bit longer, but I think they should be exactly the same width. So right there like that, and then this one on the bottom of that, and about, it looks to be right at about 1/4 of an inch on that, and then that will go on here and should come right to the bottom of the card. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to add some snail to these. So the first one is my green, and I'm going to get my green. For those of you that haven't worked with the new snail, what I found is you can catch the tape by laying it down a little bit more at an angle, but as you finish drawing across, if you raise it and then check it off, then the next time you go to grab that snail, it's right there. So I have found that that seems to work for me. Okay, so we're going to put this on so that it's got 1/4 of an inch. Once it's got the sticky on it, it's kind of hard to change your mind about what you're doing. So I'm trying to be pretty careful as I put this down. There we go. All right, now the same thing here. I'm going to put down some snail. And then lay this one down so that it's got that same 1/4 of an inch border. There we go. All right. I think that's pretty good. And then we're going to lay this on here and see how we do. And I think by putting this against one end, it should come out right all the way around. So I'm going to go ahead and add my snail. On my card, and make sure I'm putting this on right side up. Okay, and I'm going to, so that I get it right against the edge, I'm using my hand on this side to bump it up against the fold of the card and pushing it against my surface for here. And that way I should have a perfect fit. It looks like I do. I might be a tiny bit off on this side, but it might be the way I cut the paper too. Okay, so there we go. Now, on this one, unlike this card, I am going to cut off this piece here. I just thought it would be way more interesting if this piece actually picked up, and then I'm going to cut this piece off right here. And just right up against that edge, and there we go. I think that's a lot more interesting. Now, I have cut a piece of paper for the inside of this that uses this same designer series paper, and I thought this piece could go all the way across here so that when this is closed, it continues the pattern, and you can't necessarily see that this, until you go to lift it, that this is cut this way. So I think I'm going to go ahead and put this in place, and this is 4 1/4 by 1 1/2 because I just needed it to come up above the edge of this. So I'm going to go ahead and put that piece in place also. Okay. And the only thing you have to watch here is that you cut your paper the same orientation that you had for the front of this paper. This doesn't seem to be directional except for these pieces. They do look a little funny. Well, it looks fine either way, just so long as you cut them both the same way. It really doesn't matter past that. Okay, now this has been cut to fit. So I'm going to start that right in that corner and then follow this bottom piece right along to the bottom edge on this side, and that should be straight across. Excellent. Okay, now we have this for the interior of the card, and on this one we're going to have to change the inside a little bit because what I did was I did use the paper along the bottom, but I put white and green, so we'll just have to modify the size of the pieces that we put here. And I think we can do exactly what we've done here. In fact, that'll fit just straight across there with the white going this way. So we'll figure that out here in a minute. In any case, there is the front of our card with all of its paper elements. Now then, what else did I use? I used the Birds and More die set, and out of that I used this circle die, and then I also used the largest of my layering circles. And once this is cut, you can cut a circle around it, and I'll show you two of them. This one I cut pretty much just the way I wanted. This one I was a tiny bit off, and so you see, if you look at this one, how thin this little edge is on this side, and on this one it looks more even. So I found that when I cut this one out and cut it, this is what it looks like when you cut it out of the paper, and then it's a matter of just lining this up so you can see just the tiniest edge around the rim, then tape it down and do it. And I find I did a little bit better when I got right over the top of it. So I cut two of these in the garden green, and then I cut two partials in the seafoam, because I wanted a few of the lighter leaves and a few of these little dots. And then I used the wreath, and on this one I cut my wreath in pieces and just tucked some around, and I'm trying to put this together in a way for you all that makes it not quite such a bang your head against the wall project that I did on this one. So I'm going to use the whole wreath and a whole one of these over the top of it and put my bird in the middle. Then you can either choose to add the little extra elements or not. It's up to you. And that way there's not so much fussy cutting and piecing. So I cut extra pieces of almost all of it just so that I'd have it on hand. Okay, so those are the dies that I used. And I did stamp on a piece of scrap paper my little bird, and I'll show you exactly what I did. I inked up my bird really, really well, and I stamped him on a piece of scrap paper, white, so that I got quite a bit of ink. And then I used one of my blender pens, all except for his eye, to kind of color him in and darken that up just a little bit. And those lighter pieces stay lighter, but you don't see the waffle pattern in the stamp. And you can still see that he's darker in some places and a little bit lighter in others. Then I used my blend, my light Daffodil Delight, and I colored him in. There's a couple places where there's little white pieces, and so I colored him in, and then there's a die that cuts him out, but I wanted him to have almost no white border at all, so I went ahead and did mine ahead of time, and here it is. So I've got my bird ready to go. I have these pieces ready to go. And so it's now placement. So if we just take this, and I want this, I was a little unhappy that this was not raised more. So we're going to try a couple of different things. I'm going to take some mini dimensionals, and I am going to put a few of them on the fat part of some of these leaves. Okay, now I'm going to set this wreath down fairly high up on this card, like that. And then I'm going to take my dot runner and I'm going to add a bit of snail behind this wreath, or a bit of greenery, I guess. Getting some all over and adding this to the top of this wreath here. And it fits pretty well just right along that circle on there, and there. Isn't that pretty? Now I can take my bird, and one of the things I thought I might do this time is my bird had no feet. So I thought I would take the bird, because this stamp set's got several different kinds of feet, and I think I'm going to take one of these little tiny ones and let's see. Nope, I think I want the other ones. They're directional. So Okay, so what I'm going to do is put my bird up on dimensionals. And place him on the inside of this fern here, and then I am going to stamp his feet in black. It's the only place I'm going to use any black, and I'm going to just get underneath here and put those feet in, and then put the bird over the top of those feet. That makes me feel so much better. He's now grounded. He's not just floating around. Okay, so there we go. And maybe what we'll do is use the black marker and give him a very distinctive eye. Just take out that white. Okay, and now he's got some feet, and so I feel better about that. And so that is mostly the front of our card. Now, what I did was I used this punch and a piece of scrap white, and I put in my sentiment, which I got from, I got this from the Peony. Yes, love and thanks to a dear friend. None of the sentiments appeal to me, at least for this card on this one. So I'm using my Misty Moonlight ink, and I'm putting down my love and thanks to a dear friend. Let's see what happens if I put this at 3/4 of an inch in my mini trimmer. See how close I came. Not close at all. So I'm going to trim this down to an inch on this. What I did was I cut a 3/4 inch strip, then I stamped it, then I put it in the trimmer. And so I'm going to go ahead and put this one in on the 1 inch side and set that in place. Oops, I have to open it up though first. That'd be good. Okay, and slide this all the way back there and get my edge. Now, what I found was when I put this back in this way, if your piece, you have to cut this down in order for this to make any sense. So once I cut this off to like about there, and then I went to go stick this back in here, I found that because this piece is shorter, it doesn't necessarily line up. Do you see how that lined up there? So I think one of the smart things to do on this is to get it as lined up as you think, and then go ahead. Now what I did was I just used the, you could use your take a pick tool. I've got a pokey tool here, and I lined it up so that it's straight, and now I will push it further back, and then I'll look again just to make sure that's lined up the way I want. Then I'll punch it. And then you've got the right kind of end on the other side. I kept putting it in and getting kind of strange shapes on the other side, and just like always, and I know better than that, whenever you use a punch, it's best to verify you're lining up from the back side of the punch always, to make sure it's really where you think it is. This is my 3/4 of an inch piece of paper that I did, and I am going to add that right down here on the bottom of this. And on this one, I put it over to the side, but we don't have those pieces of paper there anymore, and I think it'll look just fine here. What I did was I captured I didn't use all of the wreath, the other wreath here, so I have a couple of pieces, and I thought that I would just snip a couple of pieces of this. I put some snail on the back of my sentiment, and then put these pieces back behind here like that, and then maybe along here like that, and then I can put these up on dimensionals and put that into place right across here. There we go. So that is the front of our card done, love and thanks to a dear friend. And then this opens up. This one also I had open up this way. And although this one I did this way, I did another one, I don't know where it is, that opened this way, and it just didn't make as much sense. So there's that. Now you could do away with this. That almost looks like too much, and just have it maybe be on the bottom. Anyway, for the inside, I had cut these pieces before I decided to trim this down to 3 by 5 and 3 3/4 by 5 and 4 by 5 1/4. But I'm thinking that this piece now at 4 1/4, in fact, it just needs a tiny edge trimmed off of it so that it won't interfere with the fold of the card. So I'm going to stick it in here and take, oh, I don't know what that is, a tiny bit off. And I'm going to set this down right up against that green, have it go all the way to the edge of the card, and put it in place, and then we'll trim off the edges. And we'll do the same thing with the white. So we're going to set that down right in there, and then we'll cut these away on the back side. Okay. There we go. And then we have this piece of white that will go on here, and we'll just give it a little bit of an edge. So that needs to be cut to about, let's see, it was 4 1/4, so it needs to be cut to about 4 1/8, or 4 1/8. Let's try 4 1/8, because I can always cut it down further. Let's see if that does what I want it to. So now, yep, that's perfect. Okay, so we can just add our snail. So now we're going to put this in here. The thing is, it's really sticky stuff, so you got to be really careful about putting your piece down. And I just want a tiny little border on that. I could have done a better job of making that straight, but that's pretty close. All right, then on the inside, I wanted to add a little piece of the gold and a little piece of the greenery. So I have these pieces cut from what I was working with, and I'm going to add a little bit of snail to the back of these and put them right down here at the bottom, and just bring a little of that outside to the inside. There you go. I think that's lovely as a card inside, and I love the front of this. Now, one of the things that I did was I cut these lighter ones so that I could cut off some of those little balls and put them in here. And then I thought, I wonder if it would be better to use these gold pearls, and that makes it a little bit easier to finish this off. So let's try a couple of those gold pearls. Oh, that looks pretty. And if you're at all uncomfortable as to whether these will stay stuck to your project, put a little dab of glue down on them. And I think that's pretty. Now, this inside doesn't go all the way around, and this gold does. And I'll tell you what, that's bothering me. I think I'm going to have to do a little bit of surgery here. And I'm going to cut off this right there, and I'm going to cut it off on this side. Let me get that so I can just pull that up. Right there. Okay, so I've taken that off, and I think I want to take off the gold as well. It looks like there's a real logical place to cut it right in here. And right there. I like that better. In fact, I might take this one back a little bit further. There. Yep, I think I like that better. The bird looked crowded. So I'm going to add another little pearl out here. Oh, I'll add a few more. They're just kind of fun. And so there I have this version of the card. And this is a little less fuss than this first one that I did. Lot less piecing. It's still fiddly. There's nothing for it except to call it what it is. But I love the final result. On this bird, I used my Misty Midnight marker and darkened it up, but I think I like this one better, a little bit lighter, just using the blender pen. So that is my project for the day. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel today. I do so appreciate it. And if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to be your demonstrator. And or you could join my team. Joining is always a good deal with Stampin' Up! $125 worth of product for $99. And then you get access like the new catalog for the fall and winters coming out in August. But right now as a demonstrator, you can order from it now, so you can get ahead of it. You have a full extra month on all of the catalogs to order ahead of time. So that is my card, and I do think I like this one better. I like that these are spaced the same. I like that it's cut so that it's just a little bit more interesting. I like that this is more full with a full wreath and then the full, or the 3/4 greenery and that. And I do like the little pearls. On this one, I used blue sequins. We have a new sequin assortment through the whale. I can't remember the name of it right off. I'll put it on the video for you. The new whale. Well, let's see. Whale of a Time. And these are Whale of a Time sequins, and they're really kind of fun because they're colors that we haven't had and some shapes. There's even some little seashells, and there's some greens, and oh, I do miss my iridescent sequins, so I'm glad to have this that's got a few greens, and it's got some blues, and it's got pinks, and kind of a pale blue, I guess that is. Anyway, and there's some gold in there and silver, so there's all kinds of things in here. And on this one, I added the blue sequins to pick up the Misty Midnight, or Misty Moonlight. And on this one, we did the gold pearls, and I like both of them. Anyway, that is my project for the day. Again, let's see. This is July. So I think what I'm going to do is give a birds and what's it called? Birds and Branches bundle as my prize for the month of July. And all it takes to get in my drawing is to put an order of any size on my website, lbedinger.stampinup.net, or you can get to it through my blog, www.inkandingenuity.com. And let's see, two other things. I put up something under the Shop With Me part of my blog that is called a pop-up shop. And right now, to help me unburden from some of the retired material, I'm offering grab bags. And they're $25, $50, and $75, and you're guaranteed to get at least twice what you've paid in the way of stamps, inks, embellishments, paper, you name it. There's some of everything in there. And so those are available for a little while. And let's see, what else? Oh, my July class, there's a lot of things because of the shipping issues with Stampin' Up! That are delayed in getting. And so some things are back ordered. So I've been so hesitant to put up a card class because of the back orders that I might not be able to get stamp sets and things for people. So I've decided that in July I'm going to do a card class that is background techniques. And I'm going to do 10 techniques. And that card class will be up in the next couple of days for the month of July. So thanks again for stopping by, and I'll be back soon with more cards, more projects, and more tips. Bye.